Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. The Swineherd. By Hans Christian Andersen. The Princess and the Swineherd legend is truly a tale of unrequited love. The young princess fell in love with the swineherd, who was really a prince, and he sent her two gifts that she didn't like. In order to obtain employment at her father's kingdom, he made the decision to pose as a young, unemployed man. He began crafting the princess's desired instruments after settling in a modest space. In the end, he recognized that all she needed was toys to play with and that there would never be love between them. He gave her the first instrument in exchange for 10 kisses and the other one for 100. When her father caught them kissing, they were both exiled from the country. When the princess first met the prince, she fell in love with him. However, the prince had lost interest in the princess because of her wealth. An impoverished prince formerly lived with the hope of being married someday. He had a small kingdom, but it was sufficient for him and his chosen one. He made the decision to wed the emperor's daughter after giving it some thought. Her two gifts came from him. The first one was a rose, and it smelled lovely. On his father's tomb, it only sprouted every 5th year, and because of its potent aroma, it had the power to make people forget their troubles and suffering. A nightingale with a lovely voice was the other gift. The princess received the gifts in silver containers. The emperor asked that the cases be brought to him when they arrived at the castle, where the princess was having fun. She clapped her hands at seeing the cases. Everyone gasped when she saw the rose due to its beauty. It was a real rose, the princess shouted to her father as she drew nearer to the cases. The fact that the rose wasn't artificial and was both gorgeous and fragrant made everyone gasp even more. When the emperor opened the other case to inspect the gift within, a small nightingale emerged and began singing. He was astounded. The emperor broke down in tears when one of the knights brought to memory a music box the late empress formerly owned. The princess inquired as to its authenticity. Despite everyone's assurances to the contrary, she chose to release the bird since she didn't want to admit the prince to the castle. Not yet prepared to give up, the prince. He painted his face black and brown, put a cap on his head, and then began knocking on the doors of the emperor. Being a resourceful young guy, he approached the emperor and inquired about any openings in his kingdom. The prince became a swineherd when the emperor informed him that although everyone was looking for work at the time, he just needed someone to care for his pigs right now. He was put in a little space close to the pigsty, and that space became his new residence. He got immediately to work so that everyone could see the pot he was making. Bells were placed all around the pot, and whenever food was being cooked in it, the bells would ring. The pot's steam was what gave it its true enchantment. Anyone could instantly tell what was cooking where in the kingdom by sticking their finger in the steam. The princess was out on a stroll with her attendants when she heard the music emanating from the pot. She was overjoyed to discover that she was also able to play it. She instructed her staff to inquire about the instrument's cost from the swineherd. One of them approached the swineherd while wearing wooden shoes and inquired about the cost. The clever prince instantly informed her that he would accept 10 kisses in exchange for the pot. The swineherd refused to accept less since the servant was taken off guard. She returned to the princess to inform her of the cost. She whispered it to her ear since she didn't want to say it out. The princess deemed the swineherd to be quite rude. She arrived at her castle in a rage and heard the music there again. After giving it some thinking, she instructed her servant to see whether the swineherd would accept her kisses in exchange for marijuana. It is not possible, he told her. All the princess's kisses were all he desired. Though she consented, she didn't want anyone to witness their kiss. To prevent anyone from witnessing the princess kissing the swineherd, the servants formed a circle and spread their garments. They now understood what was being cooked, where to locate dessert, and other things. They were pleased since the pot was entertaining and engaging to them. As the daughter of the emperor, the princess informed them that they were not allowed to speak to anyone. They pledged to keep their mouths shut at all times. The days passed, and the prince was unable to let them do so without taking some sort of action. He once created a rattle that would play waltzes and other dances when it was shaken. The princess heard wonderful tunes as she passed by his apartment. She informed him that she would no longer be making payments with kisses and dispatched one of her maids to inquire about the cost of the rattle. This time, he expected 100 kisses instead of only 10. He was referred to as insane by the princess, who then left. After thinking for a while, she decided that as the emperor's daughter, she must promote the arts. Despite this, she consented to kiss him 10 times and give him the remaining 90 kisses from her maids. The girls repeated what they had done before after the swineherd declared he didn't want their kisses and the girls agreed. He kissed her 100 times while the servants formed a circle around them. From his balcony, the emperor observed everything that was happening and wondered why there were so many people gathered in front of the swineherd's lodgings. He got his shoes on and descended to investigate. When he entered the room after hearing the servants counting, he stood on his tiptoes to observe what was happening. While counting the kisses, the staff was completely unaware of him. The swineherd received exactly 86 kisses as a result of the emperor banishing both of them after discovering his daughter kissing the swineherd. The princess screamed and sobbed non-stop. She had the option of choosing the prince to be her husband, but she chose not to. The swineherd considered it a wonderful chance to wash his face and put on his actual attire. The princess even bowed when she saw him. The prince explained that he only felt resentment for her because, in the first place, she didn't want an honest man as her spouse and, in the second place, she didn't like his gifts, which were lovely, but was willing to kiss a swineherd in exchange for a number of toys. He believed she deserved to be left alone. She was left alone to grieve with the only tune she knew as the prince left for his country. A young prince named Swineherd/Prince fell in love with the princess. He had chosen to bring her 2 gifts in an effort to win her love and affection, but she didn't appreciate them and declined to meet him. He disguised himself as a swineherd and applied for a job in her empire since he was still set on being with her. Realizing the princess was spoiled, he decided he no longer wanted to marry her and set out for his country alone. Princess was a spoilt girl who didn't appreciate the gifts she received from the prince. Because her father witnessed her kissing the swineherd, she was left all by herself and exiled from the realm. She was left on her own, humming the sole tune she knew. On April 2, 1805, in Odense, Hans Christian Andersen was born. He was raised in a low-income home. His mother did not have a job, and his father was a shoemaker. Hans was content growing up close to a father who understood his love for adventures and stories despite their modest means. His father has told him many tales since he was a young child and has assisted him in creating a puppet theater. His father's death made life difficult for him. To buy food, a place to live, and clothing for herself and her son, his mother was forced to do other people's laundry. He wanted to move to a major city and start over, despite the fact that she wanted to send him to a school to pursue his education. When he arrived in Copenhagen, he was only 14 years old. He struggled to make ends meet while residing in an attic. He even performed a brief dance. He sat in class alongside 12-year-olds when he opted to go to school at the age of 17. Even so, he attended a university. He simultaneously wrote and studied. He created a number of fairy tales, with the ugly duckling being said to have parts of his own life. His other well-known fairy tales include The Snow Queen, The Emperor's New Clothes, and The Little Mermaid. He passed away on August 4, 1875, in Copenhagen. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.